Welcome, Bay Community. It's another parenting and mental health. And today we're going to share a little bit, since it's that time of year. We are going to talk about going into the summer and how you can support your child and your own mental health as we move to this wonderful season. With a few intentional steps, we can reduce stress, create a summer filled with joy, connection, and emotional stability. In this session, we're going to talk about transitioning into summer can bring both joy and stress. The kids need connection, structure, and play, and that parents need rest, flexibility, and realistic expectations. Today, I'm quoting one of my favorite writers, Ralph Waldo Emerson, in honor of the summertime. Live in sunshine, swim in the sea, and drink the wild air of the summer. So, for kids, losing structure of the school year can be disorienting. This transition can affect mood, behavior, and sleep. Fact, research shows that children experience more mood swings and behavioral issues during the unstructured periods like summer than any other time of the year. And that's why it's key to plan ahead. So I know we're really close to the end, and for some of you, if you went to a private school, you might already have finished, but you still have a chance to plan now and work on creating some structure into this transition to our summer break. So, uh, as I said before, routine disruptions, getting rid of abnormal schedules can really create a lot of chaos. And you don't need the chaos, and neither do your kids. So let's talk about it. First of all, let's establish predictable routines. Predictability can reduce anxiety in your children and in you. You don't need some militaristic schedule. You just need something that has a standard rhythm. Okay. This gives kids a sense of control and security. And these routines have been shown to promote better sleep, behavior, and family cohesion. I talk about routines for sleep all the time with my patients and clients because people that struggle with sleep, if they set up a routine at least about an hour before sleep, that helps the body know when you start doing these activities, oh, okay, yeah, I'm about to go to sleep. And then your body will start producing things like melatonin naturally to help us understand that, right? So there are some things that we can do that help trigger our body to go into a certain routine. And then there's also some things that we can do very deliberately that just help keep us less stressed. Because when we forget things, when we don't get to do things, we miss things, we feel really stressed out about it, or at least a lot of us do. So in order to avoid that, you need a little structure. Some of the things you can do, some of the places you can create structure, like I said, around bedtime, around the morning ritual. You can also create structure around meal times, or certain days of the week can be a really good time for structure. So in my household, we actually have a day of the week that is an unstructured day. So being structured doesn't mean that uh, the entire day or the entire week is completely structured and all planned out. There's no room for flexibility. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The more structured you are, the more you're able to be flexible, because when something happens, say a camp has to cancel because of weather, and all of a sudden now you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with the kids? Well, you know what your structured plan for the day is. You know what your kids were supposed to do, what you had lined up, and what you don't. So now you know basically the guardrails you have to work with, right? The bounds from which you're working. And that can be a lot easier to be flexible. Or maybe your kid wants to go to a friend's house after camp, or, during the summer day while you're working. Well, if you have structure and you know, hey, you had to get these chores done before you go to your friend's house, that sets up structure. And the nice thing about that is that you still know your kids are owning their responsibilities and doing what they need to help you before they get to go do something fun, which is also a really great lesson to teach. When I was growing up, our structure around the summertime was my mother was a teacher, so she had off the summer with me. But there were a lot of things she wanted to get done, right? She didn't get a lot of time to do things around the house during the school year because she was so busy. So during the summer, the morning time from when we got up until about lunchtime was chore time. We would do things around the yard, in the house, whatever the weather permitted. And my mom had a bunch of projects she wanted to get done for the summer. So I always knew that in the morning it was dedicated to doing stuff around the house. That was my way of contributing to the household. But then at lunchtime, I was allowed to go. And my mom knew that too. So we planned things around that. And obviously, camps or sleepovers kind of would change that, but we kind of kept that to a minimum and it worked out really well. Um, and in fact, if I want to do a sleepover, sometimes my mom would say, okay, you can do a sleepover, but that means I'm going to need you to help until 2 or 3 today. And then you can go to your sleepover and you won't have to do chores the next morning. So, again, that allowed my mom to be flexible because she already had structure. Ways to do this with your kids, depending on their age, you can set up, I do this every summer, is I sit down with the kids as soon as it's summertime and we set up a chore list and we set up a daily routine. And what we talk about is, okay, what chores do you think you can do around the house? And I let them answer. Cool thing about that is once they answer, one, they already are telling you they can do it. And two, it helps create buy-in, right? If you've ever been a manager or a leader before, you often ask your employees what they think the right decision is because you're going to get more buy-in from your employees when you do that. Well, it's the same with your kids. So sit them down, even if now if they're really, really young, maybe you can do it more as just getting used to that process. You might have to guide them along the way, but it might be kind of fun to see what they think they could do. And if they think they can fold laundry, great, help them, have them sort the socks. So point being, once you create structure, and again, when you're creating this structure, you want to make sure that you put a few things in there. You want to make sure the things I would be more rigid about are actually bedtime. Um, Mostly, summer you can be a little bit more flexible with it, but this is something we really don't want to mess with sleep. So many people in our society have issues with sleep. A lot of it's due to the artificial light, right? It can be daytime any time of the year for us now, and because of the artificial light that we use. So we've really kind of screwed up our natural biological clock. So, having a time that's kind of wind down time is really important. You might want to have structured blocks for like learning time or outside time or friend time and chore time or rest time, right? Maybe if your kids are younger and exuberant, I used to have a quiet time. It might be when they take a nap, or if they don't want to nap, they have to sit and read a book or color quietly. That gives you a break, right? So we have all this stuff planned in to these uh, this structured time, you can plan fun and unstructured within it. In fact, we have an unstructured day in my family because my husband says that he likes to have unstructured time, right? So we usually have one day on the weekend that is unstructured time. So they don't have to do chores in the morning. They don't have to do anything. They can do whatever they want unless there's something that's, a game or something that's scheduled for the day. But otherwise, they're free to do whatever they want. That is my husband's day. He takes control of it. And honestly, usually I leave the house because otherwise I'm going to get annoyed at what they're doing. And they just know before I come home, things need to be cleaned up. So it works out pretty well. Everyone's happy and they feel like they're getting what they want to. But as part of this structure, we really want to pay attention to screen time. It is part of our reality now. We have smartphones and tablets and TVs that have on-demand everything now. They still have laptops and computers and all these things. So many different types of screens, right? So now, if you've taken your kid to a physical recently, you know that doctors recommend no more than 2 hours of screen time a day. Sometimes that can be unrealistic, but we really want to shoot for that. And summer often can lead to increased screen time because if you're working from home and the kids are home too, you can't constantly monitor them, or they don't have homework and they come home from camp and all they want to do is watch a screen, but they get home from camp at 4, bedtime's not until 8 or 9. That's a lot of screen time, right? The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends creating a family media plan to help set healthy digital habits. So this goes back to what I was saying before about helping your kids create the structure. Help your kids, bring your kids into the conversation about how much screen time they should have. And talk about the fact that 2 hours is the required time. So maybe you talk about what that 2 hours entails. Maybe 2 hours is that amount of time is different from a TV to the smartphone, right? Maybe they can earn screen time. So I know a lot of parents that do that. If they spend a certain amount of time doing chores, or I give to my kids in the summer, especially, I'm like, hey, for every, for the amount of time that you're on a screen, you have to double that amount of time outside. So if they spend a half an hour on the screen, they have to spend an hour outside. So and it can be done backwards too, right? So if they spend an hour outside, they can get a half an hour of screen time. So you can use it actually as it can be a little bit more fluid, and it really evens out, right? So if your kids are outside for 4 hours, there really isn't 8 hours that they can get of screen time. There's really, if they spend 4 hours outside, then they get 2 hours of screen time, and that's the limit, right? If they're outside for 8 hours, it's unlikely that they're going to have 4 hours remaining to have screen time. Um, so, it kind of works out to our favor if you do things like that. And you can balance the screen time and help your kids structure their day so they have a little bit of screen time. I also have I've talked about this before. I have my son, especially because he gets really sucked into screens. He actually has a timer by the computer that he uses to play games on. And he has to turn on the timer before he uses screen time. If I walk in and the timer isn't set, he loses his privileges for the day. So he sets that timer and he knows he has no more than, and it depends on the day what we set, but he has no more than that amount of time to be on the screen. And when that's up, and I usually set it for about 30 minutes, after that's up, he has to go outside, or he has to go read a book, or he has to go do something else. So you can play around with it. Obviously, some things like there are things like Dribble Up where you have to look at a screen to do the activity with your soccer ball or baseball or whatever. But that can be a little different. You can figure out what actually constitutes screen. One thing that definitely balances out the screen time is exercise and outdoor time. It really helps, that outdoor time really helps regulate our nervous system. In fact, it's something I tell to all of my patients when they're feeling anxiety or depression. I tell them to get outside. Especially in the summer, we get all that vitamin D. Studies have shown that kids who spend more time in nature have fewer symptoms of not only anxiety and depression, but also of ADHD. So daily movement is really, really important. We also want, that outside time also fosters creativity. So they go outside, they're kind of forced to think of stuff to do, right? So yes, you might have some things set up for them to do, but really allow them to just figure it out. You'll be amazed at how well kids will do, especially when they have a friend around. They'll figure out what to do with their time. And if you need a mantra, you can try this one: green time before screen time. So remember, for as much green time as they get half as much screen time, and they can earn their screen time then, right? So these are some different things that you can try. During the summer, and as part of what you want to structure into your time, is you want to really avoid summer learning loss. And you can do that by engaging with playful learning, right? They don't have to sit down in a classroom, have some dodgy teacher teach them something. You can really make it fun. Part of making it fun is going to be tapping into your inner child and your inner curiosity. Okay. Because brain activity without, you want to maintain brain activity without formal schoolwork, and you want to encourage that curiosity, exploration, and self-directed learning. Research shows that unstructured learning builds executive function and self-motivation. So we want kids to develop executive functioning, right? That's teaching them how to plan for the future, how to understand what consequences are from an action, right? They're future thinking. And self-motivation, that's helping them get things done. I always talk to my kids about do the hard thing before the easy thing or the thing you want to do, because you'll always be able to find time for the fun thing. it's hard to find time for the hard things. You can do the hard thing when you have the most energy, you're more likely to do it and you're more likely to get it done more quickly. So teaching kids things like that can be helpful. And as far as brain time goes, during the summer, it can be fun. It can be as simple as walking outside and collecting a few insects and then going inside and looking them up on the web and figuring out what they are. Or put in a little raised bed garden, right? It can be, if you only have a deck space, you can just get a little deck box and put some herbs in there, maybe a tomato plant. They grow really well in deck boxes. And then if you start to have issues with it, you can look it up and see what's going on and have your kids look it up. You can look at what insects are crawling around on the deck box and, the garden box and see what they are and whether they're a beneficial insect or a damaging one. We did this the other day. I found this giant black beetle in our front yard. And I didn't want him to get squished, so I picked him up and I moved him into, some leaves and he kind of made a noise at me, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what type of bug is this? Does he look like he's going to bite me or sting me? He didn't. And I looked him up and I found out what type of bug he is. And I looked him up with my kids. I showed them a picture of it. I was like, oh my gosh, because my kids weren't around when I found it. So I showed them a picture of it. I'm like, look at this cool beetle. Like we have them out in our front and we talked about it, talked about what they did and the different kinds. And so it was interesting. And having that kind of curiosity about things outside, one can get your kids outside and two can get them learning. And if you really want to make it more structured, you can create a scavenger hunt where they have to find certain things and then answer certain questions about those things. You can find those all over the place online. But if you really want something like that, I'm happy to drop something on our Facebook for you. Just ask for, the work pages and I can send them to you. Other things that, are a little more structured is going to a museum or uh, going to a local nature conservancy, or a lot of the parks will have, and you can look it up on your local Parks and Rec page. A lot of the parks will have daily activities where you learn something about something in the park, from recycling to the animals that are in the park, to the plants, to all sorts of things. Sometimes it's history. So look those up and find out where there are things the kids can learn about. And some of these can just be practical life lessons like cooking or saving money or storytelling. So maybe those kids that are doing those chores, maybe you decided that it's worth them getting a little bit of money for those chores. Well, if you do, there are all sorts of ways for kids to set up their own accounts online. They have little debit cards now for kids and things like that, and you can really help them teach about money. You can do it whatever way you want, but there are lots of different creative ways to create learning moments throughout the summer. They can still be fun. So we don't want to forget, not only are we going to learn, academic things during the summer, but we also want to continue to focus on emotional learning. Emotion coaching during the summer is so vital, right? They're not in school, and so maybe we feel like summer is carefree, but also sometimes that carefree time can leave a lot of unstructured friend time where kids can have arguments or things don't go the way they want. Kids stay up too late and then their emotional regulation isn't as good. So, we really want to look at this. Dr. Gottman did some research that showed that parents validate emotions. And that means that kids develop stronger emotional regulation and resilience when parents have stronger emotional regulation and resilience, especially when they validate their kids' emotions. So that means what we call it, name it to tame it, right? If they feel angry, have them say the word. If they feel frustrated, have them say frustrated. Have them say the emotion word out loud and have them practice this. And as they develop a bigger vocabulary of emotion words, it'll be easier for them to express themselves when they're dealing with something that's more complex because now they have the emotion words to practice with. I actually play a game with my kids in the car where we have the emotion name game and we take turns, we just keep going around and around, and we each say an emotion word until we run out of emotion words. And if you repeat one, you're out, right? So you just keep going around and the kids love it because it's competition. So they're trying to, beat their sibling or me. And you just keep going. And it's amazing the amount of words they can come up with. And if you're not sure if they know what that word means, you can always stop them and be like, okay, well, what does sympathetic need, right? And have them stop and explain it to you. And so, it can be a learning moment too. If you have younger kids, it can be something where you have them do, I have this little, emoji chart on the bottom, which I do use with kids all the time. It's easier for them to look at those emojis and figure out how they feel than it is to come up with a word. And eventually you can associate words with this. If you have a younger child, you also can create a mood weather forecast, right? You can ask what their mood weather is today. Sometimes they might say stormy, sometimes they might say cloudy, sometimes they might say sunny. And it's kind of fun to see them use that creativity to express the type of emotions they're feeling. We, of course, I mentioned this before, kids will be more creative when they have friends around. We really, really, really want to encourage social interaction. It is so essential for emotional growth. After school ends, kids may feel isolated. They're not in social settings as much. So you want to encourage positive peer connections because this will support self-esteem and reduce emotional distress throughout their lives. I have noticed lately there are so many kids that are not good at making friends. I see young adults now that have very few friends. They don't know how to make friends. They don't know how to go out and create connections with people. And, or their friends are just people online that they've never seen a face. They don't really know anything about. They're like, oh yeah, I have friends. They all play Fortnite with me or name your online game. And I'll ask questions about their friends and they won't have answers. And then I'll ask, well, will your friends listen to you when you're going through something tough? And it's interesting to hear the responses, right? So in my definition, that's not really a friend, right? A friend is both physical and, that you see them physically, they're there for you emotionally. You can talk about things. You have interests that are similar and some that are different. You learn from your friends, right? It's a place of joy and also can be a place of challenge. So as much as you can, camps are great for this, where kids are kind of forced into groups that they might not know everybody, and they're with them all week. So it kind of forces them to make friends. It's great for kids to go to camps with their friends too. But if you can, and if you haven't already done this, plan some camps where they don't have any friends that are going. So they're forced to make new friends. Um, you can also just schedule social time with friends that they have. If you have a community pool, talk to your neighbors and find a time where they're all going to be down at the pool, or maybe there's already a scheduled time that your community has. If you have friends that live a little bit further away, you can schedule a sleepover or whatever, but make sure you schedule some social time for your kids. Yes, it is a pain in the butt, but if you schedule it where it's long enough that you can drop a kid off in the morning, pick them up in the afternoon, pick them up during lunch, that can be really helpful. You can always set some things up, some cooperative games. You can give them ideas about what they can do together. And just know though, when kids are together, throw them outside, and a lot of times they'll figure out things to do. Let them get on their bike and ride to a friend's house and ask if they can hang out. Giving kids that autonomy and that responsibility of going and riding to a friend's house and asking and possibly getting rejected is not such a bad thing. They're learning how to go and ask to be around other people. And obviously, there's the sibling bond, right? You want kids to play together, but that gets old. So you want to make sure you mix it up. So, yes, it's important to have social connection. It's also important for you as the parent to take self-care. Taking care of yourself is a part of taking care of your family. Studies have shown that parental stress is directly linked to child mental health outcomes, and a regulated parent is regulating the child and is a regulating presence, right? So a calm parent will help calm the situation. An angry parent will escalate a situation. So the better you are at feeling in control and able to make better behavioral decisions around your emotions, the better your kids will be at doing that too. And we all know when we're tired and stressed out and we haven't gotten a break, we're not our best selves. So make sure as part of that structured time, you are scheduling in time for yourself. Like I said earlier, if you have younger kids, you can totally do the quiet time. I did that with my kids when they were toddlers. It was great. It was nap time. It was also quiet reading. They weren't allowed to watch TV or be on any sort of screen. They had to do something quietly. So coloring came in, maybe doing a puzzle. It had to be quiet. And I have to tell you, a lot of times I took a nap when that was happening because I needed it. Um, Ask for help. If you have family in the area, don't be afraid to ask. If you have neighbors, take turns. You can have a neighbor's kid over one day and you're kicking over there the next. You can alternate this, and that can be really helpful. There are often a lot of there everyone's home for the summer, college kids and high school kids included. So having a college or a high school kid come over for a couple hours to be a what we call a mommy's helper and play with the kids for a couple hours can be super helpful and usually isn't that expensive. So you want to find different ways that you can do self-care, and the better you are at doing that, the better parent you'll be. What kids remember most aren't the big vacations of summertime. They remember that summer was fun. Or was it? It's the how they felt. And those usually come from a lot of tiny moments. Something fun that might be a good activity for you to do this summer is get a jar out and put it out somewhere where the kids go every day, maybe like a kitchen or like by the front door, and put little pieces of paper and pencil there and start a joy jar of happy moments from the summer that you fill up all summer long. You can do this any time of the year, but it's a really neat thing that you can do with the kids when they're a little less busy. And it helps them reflect on moments during the day that they really enjoyed, which is also retraining their brain to look for happy moments, which is something that we need to train our brain to do. And it helps us in the long run be happier. Focusing and remembering these tiny moments of joy and laughter and connection, these micro moments build trust, emotional security, and resilience in our kids. Because when we're having a bad day, we can focus back on times when things were good and think about that, and it can bring us out of that sad moment. So encourage kids to plan family fun nights, and encourage them. Like I said, this joy jar can be a really fun one to do. So what are the key takeaways from today? Well, for the summer, even though it feels like it should be an unstructured time, create structure so everyone knows the rules that exist. You might have to set up a when you need to be home by at the end of the day if kids get to go play with their friends. And having that structure will allow you to be more flexible. Make sure as part of that structure that you are planning for movement, connection, self-care, right? You're being intentional about what you plan in that structured time. Make sure you're prioritizing moments of joy, setting up that joy jar, planning fun family moments, right? And be intentional about your emotional health and your kids' emotional health. Have them name the emotions they're feeling. Let them sort through emotions. Uh, you know, Help them, even ask them what their emotions are daily by, asking their emotional weather. All these things can help you be really emotional intentional and help build your kids' emotional intelligence, which has proven almost above anything else to be a indicator of success in their adult life, the better their emotional intelligence is. Summer is a time to foster that. And of course, like I said before, take care of you. If you don't take care of you, no one else is going to, and you're not going to be your best self if you're not taking care of you. So make sure you plan in self-care time. So as we get ready to go, I want to offer a few questions up that I would love for you to post answers and on our Facebook page. When I post this video, please post your answers under it. Here are some things. Talk about this with your family. What are some summer challenges you're anticipating? Things that come up. It might be scheduling. It might be dealing with these camps that only run like 9 to 2. Always kills me. I'm like, how do my parents do this? Like, I can't just work, 9:30 to 1:30. How do we do this? Right? So look at the challenges, do it as a family, and help create ideas that can help you not only anticipate the challenges, but work through solutions. And along with that, what are things that have worked for you as a family in the past? If you have some really good solutions for how to deal with barriers from the past, post them on our Facebook page. Let's share ideas and support each other because it takes a village and we can all work together. So if you were curious what research I was referring to, this is the research right here. I want to make sure this is up for a second. So if you do look at the video, you can look up these things yourself. And of course, if you have questions, please post them in the within our Facebook page and I will get to them. If you have ideas about things that you want me to talk about in the future, please post that in the Facebook as we can do that in future sessions. Have a wonderful rest of your week, Bay Community. Enjoy and take care of you.